Hi everyone, and thank you for joining me today. Now today I'm testing out the Lisa Eldridge foundation. You know I've had it for a few weeks, been meaning to do this video, but I'm actually glad that I waited because I've kind of picked up a few little tips and tricks and got more ideas about how I like to use it, which I want to share with you all. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Okay, there's 30 mils of fluid in this foundation and it retails for £44. Comes in 40 shades, and I believe that you can still get foundation samples, that you can purchase them on her site so that you can test out your perfect match. I'm in shade 19. I tested out 4 of the shades around shade 19 and also the next 4 shades up. This actually matched my skin. It just disappeared when I tried it against my skin. So I actually like this shade. Even though it wasn't the shade described for olive skin tones, it was interesting. It was described for neutral skin tones. But as I said, I'm somewhere in between neutral and warm. I'm not neutral, I'm not warm, I'm in the middle somewhere. I like to be awkward. Now, there is a couple of trademarked ingredients. Some of my pet hates are trademarked ingredients, if you've ever heard me talking about Charlotte Tilbury skincare, because you don't know what's in them. They're a combination of ingredients that have been trademarked and given a fancy name, but it's more difficult to find out whether they actually do what they claim. But these 2 trademarked ingredients, if you read about them, they're supposed to add oxygen, increase oxygen levels to your skin. Seems a very bold claim, but who knows? And another one, the other one is supposed to have smoothing and small lifting and firming qualities to the skin. I can't comment on that, and I'm not a skincare expert. All I do know is that dermatologists will say that you can't firm skin up by a topical ingredient. I've been looking at a lot of dermatologist things recently. But that being said, I'm not going to down this foundation, as you know, because anybody that's been watching my lives will know that already, spoiler alert, that I actually love this foundation and I'm wearing it. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to show you now video of me applying this earlier and to give you my tips and tricks, and then I'm going to come back and sum up. Okay, so let's go through a few tips and tricks I've worked out about applying this foundation. Now, first of all, I noticed that Lisa Eldridge was selling a flat brush. Now, it was over £50 to buy her brush, and I just don't really have that money at the moment. And so I do have a Charlotte Tilbury flat brush for foundation, and I thought I'm going to try this. When I first started using this, I actually used my normal foundation brush, but I thought I'm going to try using the flat brush, and actually I do prefer the application of this particular foundation with a flat brush. Now what I'm doing right now is I'm applying it to one side of my face so that you can see the difference, and you'll see I'm actually using it as a concealer and an eye base as well, because I think that's the beauty of this foundation. It actually looks really nice as a concealer. Now don't forget, concealer is only called concealer. Oh, I just want to stop and say I took the edge of the brush to get into that nasolabial fold there. Okay, the only reason a concealer is called a concealer is because it's got a little bit more pigment in it. But I actually think that this works beautifully as a concealer because it doesn't rest in fine lines. Now I'm going back over the areas of pigment and I'm pressing and dabbing, as you can see, and patting the foundation into areas where I need a little bit more coverage. This foundation layers beautifully. What I find is the first layer you need to work it into the skin, and then the second layer you start spot correcting by kind of dabbing. Now I'm just showing you the difference between each side so you can see It's a beautifully light foundation, but it gives brilliant coverage, as you can see when you look at the non-made up side and you look at my pigmentation. Okay, and what you can do, I'm going to show you in a second, that if I notice a spot of pigmentation, I can just spot correct. You see that little brown spot? And then I go and I dab it over the top like that, and it works beautifully as a concealer, and it just looks like your skin. Look, gone. It really is quite good to do that. So although when you get this foundation, you might think, oh, that's really light. It is, but it is going to cover. It just layers really beautifully if you need a bit more coverage from it. Now, as you can see, I'm working it into the skin. Working, and a mixture of a bit of tapping where I know that I've got a bit more pigmentation. And what's great about using the flat brush as well is it's so much easier to use it around your eyes. If you're using this foundation around your eyes, it's really easy to get into the nooks and crannies with it and to work it into the skin, because it's no point actually getting it into those nooks and crannies but not working it into the skin, because that's when foundation or concealer creases, right? You need to work it in. And you'll see I'm also going over, I've got quite a bit of pigmentation over that brow bone. So I'm able to work that brush right round the brow line and then really work it in. And once I've got that first layer, now I'd actually put 3 pumps of this, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute. I put 3 pumps on my hand, and I was just beginning to run out, so I added another pump to my hands. So all in all, I actually used 4 pumps of this foundation on my entire face. I did have a bit of excess at the end, so it was probably 3.5 by the time I'd finished, and I used the excess down my chest area, on my ears, that kind of thing. But now I'm just going in and spot correcting in those areas that I need a little bit more coverage, as you can see. And then turning, you'll see in a minute, I think, yeah, that's where my glasses sit, that I turn the foundation brush on its side again to get into that nasolabial fold. Because it's that becomes more accentuated as we age. And you'll see if you're ever creating one of those emojis and it asks you, like, how old you are, the one difference with the emoji is that your nasolabial folds are more pronounced in the emojis when they want to make you look older. So just go and look at that, you'll see. And that is the trick with this, is to actually to try and conceal those folds as much as possible. And I'm going to show you another trick in a minute that you can do with the powder and how much of a difference it makes. So now you can see I've got a bit of excess, and I'm now joining it up, making sure that I put some of this on my ears and behind my ears. If any of your skin is visible behind your ears, that's when it really shows if there's a slight difference. And just going back in, making sure that all those spots are corrected. So now I'm just zooming in and showing you that foundation, the finished look. It's really beautiful. Now I am going to continue because I'm going to show you a couple more things that really work well with this foundation. So I'm going to show you, this foundation doesn't need a lot of setting, but this is what I mean about the nasolabial folds, right? So I am just pressing some of Charlotte Tilbury's airbrush powder on one side. Now, can you see the difference just putting that powder in that area makes in terms of your nasolabial fold disappearing? It makes such a massive difference where you place your powder. So I just wanted to show you that little trick because it really works well. So now I'm putting it in the other side. And I don't think you need to powder over the entire lot of this foundation, right? But you need to target it in certain places. Now, again, if you look under the eye sockets, as we get older, that socket becomes more pronounced. And I'm showing you that now. And again, if you powder into that socket, you can actually take away the shadow a lot with using powder. Now, can you see the difference between each eye? Just by using powder in where that shadow sits below, you'd see the shadow, the kind of semicircle shadow, just by getting the powder in there, because that's where you don't want the shine, because the shine accentuates the shadow, right? So it's just a little trick that I wanted to talk to my Ali Pallies about placing your powder in the right place, and not necessarily all over the face. Now, I am setting the upper eyes because I don't want it to crease, and I'm putting some in the middle of my face. You don't have to do it there, but I'm leaving the cheeks free. I'm leaving the cheeks free because I want to keep that glow, but also for another reason that I'm about to discuss in a minute. Okay, so you can see you don't really need to cover the cheeks with this, with powder, with this foundation, because it dries down enough for you to get away without powder, but it's where you place the powder. Okay, now there's another reason that I didn't set the cheek area, is because I'm using one of Daniel Sandler's watercolour blushes, and this is in So Pretty. It's a beautiful pink shade. Now, I shook that bottle a lot more before I went onto camera, but as you can see, I've speeded this up, but it works beautifully with this foundation, and it just looks like your skin once you're done. It really mixes well with Lisa's foundation. So I've been using my watercolour blushes a lot more with her foundation, because I just think it just really mixes beautifully. So I hope these little tips and tricks have been helpful, and that's how I've been using Lisa's foundation. But I'm going to finish off just by giving you some final thoughts about the foundation. Okay, I hope that's been helpful. Overall, I would recommend this foundation. I think it looks beautiful on the skin. My one reservation, I will say, is that I do end up using quite a lot of it, because I love the way that it kind of layers, and because of my pigmentation, I love the way that it layers. So this morning, as you know, I used 4 pumps. And even when you use a lot of it, it doesn't look like I'm caked in makeup. Now, it just depends on the coverage you want. But if, like me, you've got a bit of pigmentation that you want to cover up and work into the skin, you may find that this 30ml bottle's not going to last very long. And I suspect mine isn't. But I actually like applying it in the way that you just saw me apply it. So it is what it is. But we shall see, because I don't know how much a pump dispenses. 1 pump, it might not be as much as other pumps in other bottles. It doesn't look like an awful lot when you do 1 pump. But I can't test how many mils 1 pump is. No, but I can do comparison pumps. So the top blob is a pump of Lisa Eldridge foundation. The bottom one is 1 pump of Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Filter. And as you can see, there's about double the amount. So perhaps not using as much as I thought I was. So we shall see, and I'll obviously update you when I run out of that and give you my thoughts. But overall, I would say it just makes your skin look beautiful. It doesn't make you feel like you're overly done up. It doesn't feel like you're wearing a lot of foundation. And yet it covers and it brightens. And it does have a little bit, I think, of a firming effect. So it does live up to some of the claims. Anecdotally, I would say there's a little bit of a firming effect. But I'm always very reluctant to kind of believe some of those kind of claims from trademarked superhero ingredients. That being said, love the foundation. I think it's worth it. A little bit more expensive than the average foundation, but I think it looks beautiful on the skin. And I think if you can't afford the £55, I think it's £55 foundation brush from Lisa Eldridge, any flat brush will do. This one I used was the Charlotte Tilbury foundation brush. Don't know if she does this one anymore, but I think any flat foundation brush should do just as well. I haven't tried the Lisa Eldridge one, but I think if you go for a flat one, I think it really applies really well with a flat foundation brush. Okay, so thank you for joining me, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Mwah!